Hello, I'm Shelley of Complex Connections, and we are going to talk today about executive functions. Now, this is a long, complicated word. We don't always know exactly what this means. So let's break it down. Let's talk about what executive functions are. We all use them every day in so many different ways. Your children will use them all of the time. These are those higher level cognitive skills. So they are the skills that help us to plan and do things and carry out tasks and reflect back on tasks and make decisions and take action all day, every day. These executive function skills are developed skills. We are not born with them. We definitely don't have them when we're 2, 3, 4, 10, 15, 20. The part of our brain that has these executive function skills is fully developed when we are around 25 to 30 years old. And for some neurodivergent brains, those skills are going to be a struggle ongoing, maybe even for their whole lives. As a neurodivergent person, we tend to have a spiky profile. So it means we may be really good at some executive function skills and not very good at other ones. We may really struggle with those ones. If you take any task, you will find that there are numerous executive function skills that are being required in order to do those tasks. I think this is one of the biggest triggers for parents as well. When they don't understand that their child may be struggling with these skills, may not even have developed these skills, that their child is not being difficult or lazy or obstinate or awkward, but actually their child is really struggling with something. You may find that with your child. An example that I've heard from a parent where they wanted their daughter to empty the dishwasher every day at a certain time, and their daughter wasn't doing it. To those parents, it looked like the daughter was being lazy. She wasn't prepared to do chores in the house. She became defensive when she was asked about it. And really all that was going on there was that that girl was struggling to keep that task front of mind. She was struggling to remember when to do it. It felt overwhelming to her. She was struggling to use all of her executive function skills and possibly struggling with a lot of those and not able to use them very efficiently in order to complete that task. But that was a major struggle between those parents and that child. And the more that she struggled to do the task, the more that they demanded of her to do the task, the more friction there was and the more unable she was to carry it out. Let's think about the executive functions. If you Google executive functions, you will find one website will tell you there are 7 executive functions. One will tell you there are 9. The organization that I trained as an executive function coach with is called Connections in Mind, and they identify 11 executive functions. It really doesn't matter. Let's not get hung up on how many there are and what exactly they are. You will get the idea as we're going through. So I'm going to talk you through each one and just give you a little example, and hopefully that will help you to understand them better. Task initiation. This is when we are able to have a plan of action in mind and make a start on that task. So you know, when your child needs to start their homework or start getting ready to go out, sometimes that initiation of that task, possibly because it feels overwhelming, it's possibly something that your child doesn't particularly want to do, and actually using skills to initiate that task can be difficult. Goal-directed persistence. This is when you start a task and then you have to keep going even when it gets really tricky, even when you're tired, even when you don't feel like doing it anymore. It's being persistent enough to see it through to the end. And we know that our children struggle with this at times. They may be really enthusiastic to do something, the novelty wears off, energy dwindles, and they don't really want to continue with that task anymore. And then you get left with everything lying out, or the craft is started but not continued, or the hobby was started, you bought all the gear, and then they didn't really want to see it through. It's all of those where that is a skill that we build up to be directed and persevering and get through things to the end. Even as adults, we find that really tricky sometimes. Timekeeping is something that a lot of neurodivergent people struggle with. Estimating how long something will take them, putting aside the right amount of time, sticking to a time goal, being ready on time, being out the door on time. You may recognize some of those things. Organization of belongings, organization of time, getting set in your head about how you want to do something, and which order you're going to do it in. That can all be really difficult. And as a result, you may find that that person does nothing because working their way through that organization feels too difficult. Planning and prioritization is another executive function skill which links very closely with organization. Planning, what am I going to do first? What am I going to do next? How am I going to manage these? How much time am I going to need? Can you see how they all interweave? We can separate these skills out, but really they all work in conjunction with each other. Working memory is another executive function skill, and this is keeping information in mind long enough to do something with it, to take action on it. So it's not those long-term memories, things we remember from long ago. It's not things we have to remember that happened yesterday or the day before. It is keeping information just long enough to take action on it. So when you say to your child, go and put on your shoes, get your school bag and meet me at the car. If they have struggles with working memory, they may well remember to put on their shoes. The other two instructions have gone out of their head. They haven't been able to retain that information long enough to take the action that you asked of them. They are not being awkward or difficult. They don't yet have that skill. Impulse control is another executive function, and this is being able to consciously make choices, not just react to things in the moment, not just buy something because it's there, not just spend your money immediately because you've got it, not just do something completely different and not worry about the consequences. This is a skill that is built up over years where we are able to control our impulses, and even as adults we still can't do it at times. We still struggle not to buy that thing that we want just because we've seen it. We still struggle not to eat that cake even although we know that we don't want to have too much sugar in the day. There are all sorts of ways that executive function can be difficult for us. Maintaining attention and focus is another executive function. Being able to pay attention to something really difficult for our children and for us as adults if it's not something that we enjoy and are interested in. We have an interest-based nervous system. So we are interested and we can pay attention to things that really mean something to us or we're really interested in. But other than that, it becomes a very difficult thing to do. Being flexible means being open to new suggestions, being able to take on different points of view, being able to not stick so rigidly to a routine, being able to change plans at the last minute and not be completely thrown by that. We know that some of our neurodivergent children are quite rigid, they are quite fixed in what they need to do. That's all to do with predictability, and their nervous system feels safe when it is predictable. But an executive function is being able to get around that in a different way, needing predictability, but if something happens that changes the routine, being able to deal with that. And we all have trouble with that sometimes. So understanding that flexibility is not something that our 3-year-old or our 7-year-old or probably our 15-year-old is going to have. They may get better at those as their brain matures, as their executive function skills become more developed. But we have to set our expectations realistically. Emotion regulation is another executive function skill. Being able to tolerate the frustration that comes when you're not getting your maths homework right. Being able to tolerate the feelings of frustration and annoyance when other people are not doing what you expect them to do. All of those things are emotion regulation. Being able to be in control enough of our emotions, and I never want to say in control of our emotions that we don't show them, because we all know that that's not healthy. We want to see those emotions, but being in control enough that we can be angry and we can have a shout or we can get really cross, but we can come back to regulation. We can regulate ourselves enough. And the last executive function is metacognition. This is the last executive function to develop. You will absolutely not find a young child or often even a teenager who can look back, reflect on things and learn a lesson. And yet as parents, what do? We tell our child, I told you not to do that yesterday. You should have learned your lesson from that. That's not within a child's ability to look back, to reflect and to learn a lesson. I think as adults we struggle with that a lot as well. But that skill of metacognition does develop. It can develop through practice, through opportunities to have some support around it, it absolutely can develop. The same is true for all of these executive function skills. We know that our brain is flexible, our brain, we have neuroplasticity, where if we are given the right support, if we are given confidence to do things, we can develop these executive function skills, even at my age. So even a young child is able to do those. Allow for their natural development, give them the scaffolding, and you will see those executive function skills begin to be developed. When you see your child in the middle of the supermarket and they are lying on the floor and crying and shouting, when you see your teenager unable to start studying for their exams, when your child can't empty the dishwasher, when you've explained it 10 times, you've shown them how to do it. When you as an adult struggle to have that consistency in something and see things through to the end when it becomes difficult, understand that those are your executive functions, and they will get better and worse depending on the day and the week and the year that you're having. If we understand that those executive functions are skills, we can get curious. When our child can't manage something, let's get curious. Let's look beneath what we see and let's think about what may be going on underneath that. I'm going to suggest 3 things that we can do to support executive functions. We can assume best intentions. We're going to assume our child is doing the best that they can with the skills that they currently have. We're going to scaffold. We're going to help them and support them to build those skills. We're not going to expect them to just know how to do them independently, and we're going to give them plenty of opportunity to practice those skills, still with that scaffolding in place, until we can begin to remove it little bit by little bit. Sometimes we have to put it back again if they're going through a tricky time. When those teen years come on, we feel, oh my goodness, our child has gone right back. When they were 10, they could do this. Now they're 13, they can't do it anymore. Their brain is under extreme change and construction. They may well lose access to some of those executive functions. Just put the scaffolding back in place. And that's not to make our child dependent on us or to make them less able to do something. They'll get back to the point where they can do it. Let's just help them out. Think of that connection. Think of the way that you can support them to develop those skills. As always, I would advise small, sustainable steps. Again, this is part of recognizing that progress. Think of what could we do today to stretch that skill a little bit? What could we do to help our child achieve success with that organization skill? Could we ask them to just look through the bag that we've packed and see if they've got everything they need for football? And then maybe next week or next month, we could say to them that we'll put all the clothes in. Could they remember to put their football boots in? And scaffold them, help them. Would sticky notes help? Would often externalizing support around executive functions is really helpful. You know how we as adults make lists, we make notes on our phones, we set reminders. All of those are to help us with our executive functions. Somehow we expect our child to just remember it and know what to do. They may well need that visual support, a little sticky note left next to their breakfast plate, something just to give them support to help them. And when they achieve success in something, that grows those neural pathways. So as soon as they have those feelings of success, they're more likely to be able to do it the next time. When they have those feelings of success, they're going to be less overwhelmed. It'll be easier to start the task the next time. Their feelings of confidence will have grown, their anxiety will have lessened, and they will be more willing to give it a go. Have that very strong ethos of it's fine to make a mistake, it's fine not to get it right in your house, so that when your child doesn't get it right that time, or completely forgets something, or isn't able to pay attention, or struggles to remember what they need to take to school, it's okay. We fail. I don't even like that word, but we fail forward. We fail, we get up, we try again with support. Think of what they might need differently the next time. What's going to help them to achieve that success? The next step that you can take if you'd like to understand more about executive functions is download the free webinar that I've created. If you think that it would be helpful for you or your child to chat with me, possibly work through some strategies around executive functions, click on the link and you can have a free initial chat with me, and we can have a look at whether what I offer is a good fit for you and your family.